really looking at how energy is transforming. And this forms the foundation of the sync idea. And so in 2024, I was thinking about, what's the energy story? Because I've been writing the energy edition for this magazine since 21 in earnest. And I had written earlier ones as well, but it was more patchy, and I've become a little more regular in my energy edition work that's annually. And so I was looking at oil and gas because it's a big piece of the equation in Texas. And there had been a lot of mergers and acquisitions. The industry's consolidating. 234 billion was spent in 2023. Lots of money, lots of money. And so I was thinking about that. But then what started emerging was, we started hearing about, oh, these data centers are going to require a lot of energy. And also there's a lot of crypto mining done in Texas. Like we're 1/6 of the crypto mining that happens in the world. It's in Texas. And so they use a lot of energy as well. It's a big energy story. And with all this, the chips, Samsung chip plant that's being built, and other industry that's emerging in Texas, I was like, gosh, there's a lot of demand. And so that became the story, that there is this long runway for new energy demand. And it also means grids are going to be challenged. So what I was seeing is that there's all this disruption in energy coming from many directions. And there's hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars that are going to be spent surrounding all this in the next number of years. And here I just want to highlight, because you have careers that you're going to be thinking about when you finish your education, you may be thinking about it now, is that, people are really at the heart of all this. Supportive people and colleagues have allowed me to do like these features that I do that are really, for me, it's not just a journalism exercise. It's really R&D. It's a project for me because in my consultancy, I'm also doing these kinds of projects with firms and institutions. So it all kind of blends together. And because of these relationships, and this is my editor, and she's sort of talking about the long runway story in November. And but because of that relationship and that support, when I pitched that I wanted to do the sequel, which becomes AI's Wild Ride, I could do it. And here I just want to mention too, before I move over to the AI feature, is I interviewed this CEO from Digital Realty. And they're a big publicly traded data center firm, basically. And this is also the Samsung chip plant in December, a year later. It's grown since that last photo that we just looked at. But what I wanted to mention here is this was really unique. I've never had a CEO take to LinkedIn like this and really, he was super happy about the feature and that we highlighted what was going on because it's such a big deal. And so I just wanted to note that I thought that this was a really progressive thing he did. So this takes me to the really wild AI ride. And this actually comes from one of the CEOs that I interviewed, who was a data center developer. And I know that he works with really, top level firms like NVIDIA and that sort of thing, and doing really state-of-the-art data centers. And anyway, he was just saying, buckle up, because if in this, we're in this training phase with AI. We hear about, training all these LLMs, the training of ChatGPT and DeepSeek, all of it, that once we go to this inference stage, where it's being utilized by people and businesses more, that the power demand is actually, expected to increase. So there's all these equations going on to do with making chips more power efficient, and finding ways to use resources more efficiently in these data centers. And because of it, I think there's going to be a lot of innovation as well. And there's starting to be in energy. So it's really an exciting time, this sync up between energy and digital infrastructure, this new era economy, if you will. And this is just because this reflects kind of what I think is kind of cool and fun about it is so this this is like one of those transformers. There was like a whole row of them in Albuquerque. I was there with my daughter, and we sort of stood in front of these massive transformers. I have a bunch of pictures of these, but I thought it epitomized this announcement by um, Chevron, big oil, and they had an announcement that they were partnering with GE Genovia or something like that, big firm, energy firm, Lane's Cleaner, and so the two were partnering up together because they were going to start developing all these behind the meter solutions for data centers, so that they didn't have to be necessarily hooked up to the grid, so they wouldn't siphon power off the grid. And because these big data centers and the hyperscalers, speed to development time is really important. Speed to market, and so you see a lot of activity and announcements, and I mean they were like endless after Trump announced this big Stargate project, and in fact that project. It has origins in Texas, and I know that in fact the data center campus that is kind of like a bit of a poster child for it, though there will be other facilities connected to the Stargate project. But I knew about this when I was writing the feature as well. So there's going to be all these new partnerships. The rest of the world wants in on the action. There's announcements in France with nuclear. Spain wants to be a data center capital. India, China, everybody wants in on the action because it's this idea of these technology ecosystems, and they're emerging with various characteristics around the country. And we'll leave the cool fans up